Time. Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 154. You know, I'm saying that and I kind of forget sometimes, and I just typed the number. I forget sometimes. 154. It is the 18th of November. We're nearly at the end of the year. Thank you all for joining me. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Many topics we were talking about tonight, but you know, the pre-live oftentimes has some really interesting topics that jump up. Good night, Adish Ramnarayan over there on Instagram. Some really interesting topics that jump up, and you know, it sidetracks from the main topics of the night, but that's fine. That's kind of what we're here doing anyway. So someone was asking about polygamy, and I disagree with polygamy. It's been a while now. I've been thinking to make an entire YouTube video saying why I think I don't know how many of you are aware what the red pill is, and the red pill YouTube talk and the red pill universe, etc., etc. With how do these lives impact your family life? But you're here for us. But my family life, I am home. I am home in my home, so it doesn't impact my family life negatively at all. Not this directly. I'm in my house. This is like if you were to take an hour and a half and go to the barn line. Well, this is my version of that, I guess. This is my version of taking that hour to go to the barn line. I'm liming, but I'm doing it right here home. So I'm pretty sure if you ask most wives if they would rather their husband sit at home and talk or go out somewhere else and talk the old talk, they would rather him sit at home. So I think it's a positive. Thank you, Jody Lee. With the punching. Let me stop that before people take me seriously. But yeah, I've been thinking to do a video, an entire video, explaining why I think the red pill and the male advice that many people give to men online, I think that advice is best for women. I think many men shouldn't take that advice because yes, Adish, you're quite correct. It's normal water out there. I'm drinking normal water. The advice that they give in many of those kind of online advice to men is a kind of polygamous advice. And the thing is, they talk about the mating strategy of men, and they talk about men being able to, there's a technical term for it, men have higher social sexuality, meaning men have an appetite for more sexual partners. Naturally, it's a natural thing. Many people try to argue it. You could go and find study after study after study that shows it. There are some studies that show many women who have more than 5 partners before they marry, they struggle to have a marriage that lasts, while it doesn't have the same effect on men. It's just nature. Men have a different mating strategy, and it's seen all throughout the animal kingdom. That's true. Many males in many different animal species, because of the very nature of what the male gamete does. Let's not get too raw in it. If you know what the male gamete is, the male sexual cell, what the nature of it is, it could spread. You know, you make a few million of those. That's capable of spreading. But here's the problem with that. There is a social side to all of this. Good night, Neil. When will we talk about why it's so hard to get illegal firearms? Sir, we talk about that probably every week. But yes, there is a social side to it. So the part that disappoints me with some of these things is we have done the social experiment in a lot of these areas already and seen the result. The majority of the world has been polygamous for the majority of history. That has been generally how history works. And polygamy has nearly always been on the male side for obvious reasons. So there were many men that have been polygamous throughout the ages, and many societies that functioned like that. Christianity was one of the main changing forces in pushing towards a monogamous world. That's one of the lasting effects of Christianity and the Christian world, trying to push for enforced monogamy in most societies. We can go back through time and see what happened to different societies when they were polygamous and when they changed over to monogamous. Polygamy provides a math problem. what polygamy does is all the top men, top boss, the top G's, and then the high value men out there, for y'all who like watching your Fresh and Fit and all of that, for all the high value men out there, great. They might be racking up multiple women, but that leaves a math problem where there are many men kind of down to the bottom of the society that get none. And on a social side, that's a big problem, because you see, a group of men without a family usually are a group of men with nothing to lose. And many civilizations have felt the angsty consequence of what happens when that happens. When you have too many single young men without the prospect of finding anyone, you end up in trouble. And maybe in some of our civilizations now we are heading back in that direction because of the whole mix of the new dating culture and online and all of that. Who knows, maybe we are. But older civilizations, some of the older civilizations used to have war seasons. I regularly speak about this. Used to have war seasons. A war season when they go out to fight as many battles as possible, because they have a group of young men here with nothing to do, and if they leave them here, it's going to cause trouble. That's a problem. So on a social side, if you're able socially to enforce monogamy, encourage everyone into monogamy, that means that nearly everyone is going to pay up, because by and large there's a general 50-50 split. A little variance here and there, but generally a 50-50 split. So if you encourage everyone to marry one person and stay with that one person, by just the process of elimination, nearly everyone finds someone and you get more peaceful societies. Adish Ramnaran says, I think it still happens today. I see it, many wealthy men still have 2 and 3 women besides their wives. That's true. That's very true. And we're getting more and more of that as time progresses further now. That's one side. So socially it's a bad idea. On a social side, Nisi, do you have a problem with that statement about high value men? Socially, it's a bad idea. And then secondly, on the familial side, what you could, as I was saying again, you can go back through time and see what happened when different societies changed from polygamous to monogamous. And one of the consequences of monogamy was the men, the families, the legacies were able to suddenly concentrate a lot more wealth a lot more quickly. So individuals and individual families began becoming a lot more wealthy a lot faster. Polygamy pauperizes because one person, the high value man, that one person would now have to spread his resources thinly among multiple partners, and that's generally how it would go in polygamy. So if you have one man to one woman seeing about their individual children in a nuclear type family, that nucleus there, they are better able to see about that child, they are better able to concentrate their resources, and you tend to see a growth in the average resources of your average citizen. So on the individual familial side, polygamy isn't better either. Polygamy nearly only works on the side of if you're just trying to grow your civilization as fast as possible, well, then polygamy would be grand there. Then polygamy would be grand if you're just trying to grow your civilization as fast as possible. But if you're trying to allow people to get more wealth, if you're trying to create a more stable civilization, yeah, it's just not a good idea. And the thing is, women don't like it. It's a difficult position for many women to be in. So I'm not saying this as if I lived life as a woman. I'm saying this based on some studies that were done and the statistical evidence that generally leans that way. Many women find themselves in a bit of a difficult position. If women have the option, most women will wait on the man they want and remain alone for the meantime than go with a man they don't want. If many women think about the answer honestly, would you rather see the man of your dreams once every 2 weeks, or see a man that you don't really care for every day? You all don't have to answer. We all know the answer that's going to come out there. So that's the reality on the women's side. They already have a favorability for the men they want. That's seen widely. All women basically have a desire for the top 10% of men, hypergamy and all of that good stuff. But on the other side, women have a lower social sexuality desire, meaning women aren't the same as men in terms of the amount of partners that they naturally want. They have done experiments on this where if you go into colleges where there are more women than men, so men become the limiting factor, what you end up seeing is polygamy in colleges like that, because then the men are the limiting factor. You have to use their dating style, their preferred dating style. If you go into a university or a college where there are more men than women, you tend to see monogamy, because monogamy is the preferred dating style of women. Most women would much rather have the one man or the one person that they desire, settle down with that person and go on with that person. That's the mating strategy of a woman, and it makes sense that way. What's the topic, by the way? We're just riffing at the beginning from a question we were talking about in terms of polygamy versus monogamy. That's what we're talking about right now. But either way, in terms of the general mating strategies, women don't want polygamy either way. So that's the other side. So if you ask me in general about polygamy, I think it's a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea. And it's kind of stupid to me to see many of the people that talk about, the black family needs to be rebuilt and we need to strengthen the black family, and they're so pro-black and all of that good stuff. Africa power, okay, all of that well and nice. But then there are the people going out there having multiple broken homes and knowing fully well that the statistical reality of what happens to children by and large in more broken homes, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's been a while, just passing through. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Hex Senpai. Yeah, it has been a while. One of the earlies in the lives. Thank you very much. And in the videos in general too. All right. That wasn't the main topic of the night. We're jumping into some local news right now, though. We're jumping into some local news. I saw some people got arrested for fraud. Some people got arrested for fraud. And it just kind of linked with something we were talking about last night in terms of the difference between the political parties and what I see in terms of the political parties and their unique styles of varied corruption. Let's check out this article. Let me see if I have that up. Well, yes, I do. All right. Trade Ministry employee, 2 car dealers charged with roll-on, roll-off fraud. Adish Ramnayan says polygamy to me is a way to normalize cheating. Well, the idea with polygamy, though, is you won't call it cheating, because cheating would be, if you take cheating literally, cheating is breaking the rules. If your rule is polygamous, then to be polygamous isn't breaking the rules. That's like a unicorn. That don't happen. White collar crime isn't so bad according to the poops. Ha. Well, here's the thing. Trade Ministry employee, 2 car dealers charged with roll-on, roll-off fraud. 3 have been granted a total of $700,000 bail by Justice of the Peace after being charged with misbehavior in public office by officers in the Anti-Corruption Investigations Bureau yesterday. The 3 will appear before a Port of Spain magistrate on December 20th. It is alleged that a female trade officer, 2, employed with the Ministry of Trade with responsibilities to issue trade licenses for the importation of foreign-used roll-on, roll-off motor vehicles, issued fraudulent licenses to 2 foreign-used car dealers during the period November 20th and July 2021. And that's what they got in trouble for. I remember last night I was making a note of something I heard about an entrepreneur in Africa, talking about the corruption in Africa and highlighting the fact that a lot of the corruption isn't just due to the fact that the African societies are more corrupt than other societies. No, it's due to the difficulty with actually getting business done in those societies. It's difficult to get business done, so it facilitates corruption. It encourages corruption. If you want to actually do some business there, then nearly the only way to do it is actually be corrupt. And in this case, it's not like these men were directly stealing. It's not like these men were attempting to bring in guns. It's not like these men wanted to rob the treasury per se. Basically, it seems like they may have bribed someone to get their license to bring in vehicles. Why would you pay to get a license to bring in vehicles? Because the normal process to get the license to bring in vehicles has been closed to you for some reason. That's the only reason you would pay to do that. If there's a system whereby you could go through the legal channels and it's just the regular, licenses don't generally cost an extreme amount. You just go through the regular legal channels and within 2 weeks you get your stuff. Then you think these men would have gone through the fraudulent side? I doubt it. But if the case is that they weren't getting the licenses to bring in vehicles through the legal avenues, then they're like, well, I want to make my money anyhow. So, you know what? Maybe I have to pay a bribe to get the license, and they do that. And they pay the bribe and they get the license, and that's what goes on. Things like this. Yes, it's a crime. If you do the crime, well, I can't say anything about you paying the consequences for that. But in the nature of what the crime is, I think some of this could be symptomatic of what I was talking about last night, where I believe the PNM, our current ruling government, are more prohibitive to new business. They are about maintaining the status quo. The usual big businesses continue being the usual big businesses. And cars in Trinidad and Tobago are a very big business. And I spoke about that right last night. The fact that one of the first things the PNM government did when they came into power was close and curb that bringing in cars market to centralize everything back to the main car sales people in the country. You small guys, no, you all aren't going to bring in anything. We're leaving that at the top. Like something like this. I'm glad the police are doing their work. The Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau is doing their work. But if they can find corruption and fraud like this, how hard is it to find the corruption and fraud in customs? Or how hard is it to find the corruption and fraud in the motor vehicle licensing department? That seems to be some obvious corruption. When I see things like this, when I see that, wait, our fraud squad can work, because this isn't something very long ago. This was from 2020 to 2021. Our fraud squad is capable of doing some work. All of a sudden, if you want to import cars, our fraud squad becomes Scotland Yard. They're the best investigators on the planet. If you're trying to cut around the corners to import cars to try to make some money. You're not trying to steal money here. You're trying to provide a service. You're trying to bring in a vehicle and sell it to someone else who wants to buy it and who wants to pay for it. You're trying to do commerce. And they're stopping you from doing commerce. And if you dare try and find ways around it, you're going to be caught. But if you want to just do the regular corruption that is part of the status quo, if you want to go and just pay to get your license and jump on the road the next day, well, that's fine. You could be doing that. The same people could be running that same scheme for the last 30 years and not a person could be affected. The Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau has gone Stevie Wonder. They have no idea about that kind of corruption. But dare you try to get a license to make some money otherwise than they want you to. Abdan says they should ban import of cars for 10 years across the board. Wow, no, they should not. This is what I was talking about last night, though, Abdan. I understand what you're saying in terms of what you feel, but this was the point I was making last night. So often, when we see trouble, things happening in and around our country, the solution we ask for is a solution that actually gives more power to the same politicians that created the problems. I do not want any of those politicians correctly in governance to be able to stop people from bringing in cars, to stop a regular citizen from being able to buy a new car. Because you know very likely what's going to happen if you give them that power. You're going to see regular citizens are banned from bringing in new cars, but judges and members of parliament and etc., they are exempt. So you go out there hoping that, yes, we have a problem and you know what we should do? Ban all new cars. Not understanding when you say that, what you really mean is you're giving the government that power. Adish Ramnaran says, ever think that fraud squad is the personal strike force of a certain type of people in this country? I wouldn't doubt that at all. I wouldn't doubt that. I don't know that to be a fact, but I would not doubt that. Abdan says, not even the car firms getting banned and all as well. No imports of cars for 10 to 20 years. We have enough cars. Check all them car, please. As I said, I understand what you're trying to say, but what you're asking for is to give the government more power. Do you really? Like, think about who is your most disliked politician. If you dislike Dr. Rowley the most, would you like Dr. Rowley to have the power to look at you and say, you cannot buy a new car for the next 20 years? Is that the power? You want a politician to have that power over your life? Like, no thanks. If you want that, that's up to you, but no thanks on my behalf. Wetlead says their justification is not the small man making money, but the use of foreign exchange. Is this justification plausible? I do not believe it is plausible. I do not believe it is plausible because there are other people bringing in the cars and selling it. There are other people doing it. So if it is just a matter of who brings it in, it's the same amount of cars, who brings it in is the matter, then I struggle to believe that is your excuse. And when you look at who spends the most foreign exchange, it's not those small men. It's not those small men. I was speaking about this last night when Mr. Colm Imbert was bringing up during a budget speech that he was kind of laughing at the small entrepreneurs who just want to buy completed goods, finished goods from foreign and bring them down here and sell finished goods down here. And that's not real entrepreneurship. You're supposed to be taking the local goods and putting value added to it. And I understood, as I said last night, I understand what you mean by that. You want to increase the country's ability to export. You want to increase the country's ability to gain foreign exchange by selling things out. Okay, I understand that. But then how do you justify that when the largest companies down here are still getting the foreign exchange to do that very same thing? So it's not like you're stopping all companies from doing it. And that's why I say I don't want to get these people more power. If you give them more power, very likely they'll just continue doing the same things they're doing. It's just they're going to have more power to be able to more effectively execute what they're doing. So it's not like no one is using foreign exchange to bring in foreign cars and sell them locally. People are doing that anyway. I realize how ridiculous that is now thinking about it. Car like, whoa, all these dealers have cars and trying to give the best deal, stop everything. Then you're continuing down that line, and it seems like you aren't even listening to what I'm saying. Do you want to give a politician the power to stop you from buying legal goods? I do not. I do not. When you're asking for more regulation, always bear in mind you're asking to give them more power. Do you think that the amount of power they have right now, Abdan, please answer this before you go on the tangent. Do you think that the power they have right now, they're using it very effectively? Do you think they are using that to the best of their ability? They're helping out all the citizens in the country? Are they using the power they have right now in such a way that you're enthusiastic to give them more power? I don't know about your adjudication on that. As far as I can see, I will say no. Adish Ramnaran says we need to understand some laws are made for us, the commoners, not the lords and ladies. You know, you're not answering me, so never mind. You know, I could appreciate to some extent the monarchy system. Like let's not mama guy ourselves. You consider yourself a lord and a lady. You consider yourself better than a commoner. At least we all know where we stand in this present system where everyone pretends like, we are all equal in the eyes of the law. But when you see how people operate, you understand it's kind of the same thing. There are some people that are at this level, there are some people at this level, and there are some people at this level. At least in the monarchy, in the feudal systems, they made it clear. They made it clear you are a lord, a lady, a duke, a duchess, a countess, a marquis, whatever you might be, and you are just a dirty commoner. At least it was clear. At least it was clear. Like, Abdan, what are you talking about here? If you're saying all MPs across the board abuse their power, and they call that perks of the job in the famous line they use, if you are saying that, why would you want to give them more power? That's beyond me. That's beyond me. If they are currently abusing their power, how is your solution for anything? Give them more power. Afisha asks, what's your stance on the Youth Agricultural Homestead Program? That's where they're training them and giving them... I like the idea. The government is never short of good ideas, but like things like this, when the government creates a program, here are some of the questions I have in mind. How much money is being spent on that program? How much of the money is going directly to who they say the beneficiaries are? How much of the money is going to be paid to a board? Because for all you know, very likely that Youth Agricultural Homestead Program would have a board. The board would have a chairman and a CEO and other board members who would be making thousands of dollars per month. You understand? So whenever I hear these ideas, which by themselves might be great ideas, the skeptic in me wonders how much of the money is actually going to help the people that are supposed to be benefited, and how much is going to be lost in translation. Like in CPEP, how much of the CPEP money reaches to the people that are actually cutting the grass and painting the stones, and how much goes to a contractor who owns the CPEP gang and has a link to a government minister? Once Paula say no is no, we do not have an executive president, Abdan Joseph, so Paula doesn't have as much power as you may think she has. Do you think it's another political tactic? Well, I think it's all a political tactic. Politicians work in political tactics. That's what they do. So, of course, it's a political tactic. Do I think that maybe there's good intent in some of it? Maybe I don't doubt that. I don't think that everything everyone does, it always has a cynical or evil intent. Maybe there is good intent. But I'm just saying from understanding how a lot of politicians function and a lot of politics functions, you understand that a lot of the times when you see these programs created, oftentimes just look where the money goes. Akil Camp says good night, hoping to get the present and past politicians to do better is failure. We need new people in government. I address this nearly every night. Nearly every night I talk about this. I do agree the old politicians aren't that good. I also think it's not a thing about old politicians, it's a thing about human nature. I think you're setting yourself up for heartbreak if you are of the belief that somehow if we go out there, we could find the right politician who is going to take this country and really treat it properly. For us to find that person, first of all, I think that would have to be someone who doesn't even want to do the job. Someone who may actually be good at running the country very likely would be someone who doesn't want to do it. Nearly anyone who says, I want to do it, I could do this, I know how to run the entirety of a country, that by itself probably already disqualifies that you make me laugh, the Akil Camps. That probably already disqualifies them. Well, Abdan Joseph, to me, you're disqualified already. Because I think the level of hubris and arrogance needed for someone to look at the entirety of a country, the complexities of a country, like go around the country, go into a village, and meet some people. There are some people living in a little remote village in the east of Trinidad that left their village 2 times in their whole life. That's people living in a whole different world. And am I of the belief that me, this one human being, has the capability to go and make decisions on behalf of every single 1.4 million people on this little island? I'm sorry, I don't have that kind of faith in myself. And I think nearly anyone who has that kind of hubris and arrogance in the first place might exactly be the person we don't want for the job. Tyson says, so I was planning to go to an orange rally tomorrow. How you feel about their leader? I think their leader is a known entity. I do not think the person is unknown. I think you can go back through news if you were someone who paid attention to the news and know a lot about this person for the last 20 years. They were not someone who was unknown on the political landscape. And I am always wary of people who seem a bit like political opportunists. We can't just sit back and do nothing. That was never what I said. I am very wary of people who are political opportunists. People, like, I don't know how many of you ever saw a mosquito on a mosquito net. I don't know how many of you ever had that experience. Like, sit and watch a mosquito on the outside of a mosquito net and watch how they move. They would literally start from the top of the mosquito net and they're just bouncing on the net, going along the entirety of the net. They're just looking for that one hole to get through. And there are some people politically who behave just like that. They were here, then they went there, then they went there, then they went there, then they went there. And to me, after a while, you start to look like you're just looking for an opportunity to gain some power. And in that case, I don't know if I would trust you as a trustworthy leadership. I don't know if I trust you in that way. So I am wary of people who seem a little bit like political opportunists. What's your stance on the extradition of Jack Warner? Let's jump over to that article too. That's interesting, on the extradition of Jack Warner. The thing is, as I was saying previously before we started, Mr. Warner isn't due to be extradited anytime soon, just by the way. He lost one case. That doesn't mean he has lost all his cases. That doesn't mean he's currently on a flight with shackles on. Warner promises to continue challenging legality of U.S. extradition request. 5 law lords of the United Kingdom-based Privy Council have dismissed former FIFA executive and TNT government minister Jack Warner's final appeal over the dismissal of his lawsuit challenging the United States extradition request for him. You know what's kind of funny with all of this? The law lords are from the United Kingdom, and it's the United States who wants him. He is trapped between the United Kingdom and the United States. The reason being, and I think FIFA flew too close to the sun. What's the Icarus? The name of that, was it Greek fable? Where he flew too close to the sun and eventually his wings melted and he fell. FIFA got so powerful, they figured they could do anything. And they attempted to snub the United States and the United Kingdom. If you know how global geopolitics works, that's not something you generally try to do. Because they try to get back at you really quickly. And the United States seems like they did. They didn't even do any direct business in the United States, but once you use US dollars and it moves through a US bank, well, they have some jurisdiction, and that's how they're going after Jack Warner. However, Mr. Warner has promised, in a statement issued a short while ago, Warner said he would continue to challenge the legality of the proposed extradition. I continue to have confidence in my team led by Fiad Hossain Senior Counsel, and I've advised them to continue to press my case on the 3 remaining stages of these proceedings. I have lived in this country for nearly 80 years, and I'm confident that I will continue to receive the love, affection, and respect the people from all walks of life have always extended to me. I'm certain I will prevail in the end. You see, Mr. Warner is nearly 80. He's 79, I believe. Going on to 80 early in the next year, I believe. The way he could figure it, if he can extend his court cases for the next 20 years, he doesn't have much worry. Innocent until proven guilty, yes. No one is saying no to that, but that's the problem. They want to attempt to prove him guilty. And the thing is, some of the people charged with the same thing as him have already paid their fines, and well, at least Mr. Is it Blazer? Blazer or Glazer? He's dead already. And it says sometimes I feel people like Mr. Jack, ironclad, but if Uncle Sam wants you, well, you know what happens. Well, Uncle Sam doesn't get everyone they want. They get a lot of them, but they don't get all. And Mr. Warner probably has enough money. It's just if he has enough legal grounds to drag that case on out forever. And so what? You're paying your lawyer a certain amount of money every month. You have more than enough to do that. If that means that your case is dragged out for the rest of your natural life, then so what? Yes, I watched it over on Netflix. I did watch it over on Netflix. I watched that documentary. I was seeing today as not only today and yesterday, as the news broke about him losing that Privy Council appeal, many people in Trinidad were talking about the same thing. The fact that they believe he is, as it were, Robin Hood. That, okay, he stole, but he stole out there and he came in here and gave. I can understand it. I understand what you're saying. He stole there, but he rewarded here. That's a kind of Robin Hood thing. Here's the reality. Nearly every bandit functions like that, you know. Those guys with the guns having people lying down on the floor inside of the Chinese restaurants. When they steal the money from the Chinese restaurant and they go to their homes, they spend the money on people. They don't just spend all of the money on themselves. They spread the money too. Basically, every thief could be considered to some extent as a Robin Hood. Like, that doesn't exactly excuse the thieving. And part of it is that they were taking money, allegedly, that was supposed to be earmarked towards development in poorer areas. The main thing that they got in trouble for in the United States, if you look at the documentary, the main thing was a $10 million donation from South Africa intended for the development of the African diaspora. That was the money. 10 million intended to develop the African diaspora. And if you might be a member of the African diaspora, you might think like, okay, if that's a justifiable cause, a large country in Africa, one of the richest countries in the African mainland continent, is donating money to be used by the football federations in the Western world to help the African diaspora. Okay, I could understand the intention of that. None of it went to there. So it's not like they stole money from the wealthy and gave it to the poor. No, they stole money from going towards the poor and kept it for themselves. Allegedly. Another one of the allegations is that some of the money earmarked for Haiti. If you're talking about who deserves to get a blight, if you're talking about who deserves a little something, like, oh gosh, give them a little ease up, probably no one on earth deserves more of an ease up than Haiti. Like, oh gosh. If you steal from Haiti, there is no way you could be called a Robin Hood. There's no possible way to frame someone who takes money from Haiti as a Robin Hood. I just cannot see it. That's, you don't get lower down the ladder than there. There's no way you could say you're taking it from them to give it to someone lower down the ladder. They're kind of at the bottom of the ladder. There's nowhere else to go. So I don't buy that. If indeed he is guilty of what the allegations are, then he's just a dishonest man who used his position to gain resources. I don't consider that to be something very strange and unnatural for humanity. I think many humans, if put in the same position, will do the same thing. As I was saying, it's a human nature thing, not a politician thing. So it's not like I rate him as much worse of a human because of it. And I'm pretty aware that there are many people doing the same thing, and the only reason they aren't getting the punishment that he seems to be getting is because they didn't cross the wrong people. They didn't cross the United States. They didn't cross the United Kingdom, so they are able to do it freely. Mr. Warner and FIFA have been allegedly doing the same thing that the United States is accusing them of. They have been doing that allegedly for the last 40 plus years. Not 40? Yeah, about 40 plus years. They've been doing it a long time. And all of a sudden now they're interested. And they're just interested in a certain select few. Like, okay, I understand that. So I understand that even the punishment isn't really based on some kind of real high moral standards. It's not that these people are, trying to really keep honesty in the world. I don't buy that either. I don't think so either. So it's not like I think it's good versus bad in a fight to the death here. No, I don't think so. I think it's just personal interest versus personal interest, and I don't think it's wise to get yourself sold on another person's personal interest, to buy into someone else's personal interest. Like, you have so much vested interest in this. No, that's their business, and if they have done something, maybe they will face the consequences of that action. I don't really see him as a Robin Hood. No, I don't see that. And you see, you have to understand the framing of what Robin Hood was. Robin Hood wasn't going out and robbing random people and then coming and giving the money to the poor. Go back and read the book. Robin Hood was taking the money from the king. Well, it wasn't the king. It was the warden who was collecting the money on behalf of the king. And that money that he was taking was the people's money in the first place. He was taking, as it were, the taxes and returning the taxes to the people. That's what he was doing. So for someone to be Robin Hood in this case, they would have to go, and when the government spends 20 million a month on, suckers for sunsets, cool, what's up? When the government goes and spends 20 million per month renting a building, you go and hack that. This is what a modern day Robin Hood would have to do. You hack that 20 million and send that 20 million to all the accounts, to several accounts in the country. That's what a Robin Hood would do. You take tax-paying money, the taxes, and then you send it back to the taxpayers. If you're going to take someone else's money and then bring it to another country and give it to someone, no, you're not robbing Robin Hood. That's not what Robin Hood did. Don't miss mine. Yeah, when that bandit take your purse in tongue, they go in and buy food for his children and mother. Yeah, that's true. Don't miss your bank account when Robin Hood doing his daring acts of great moral rectification. Make sure you find your bank account. So what's your bank account number? And if you give me, DM me the pin too. So, I'll message I'll call Robin Hood and let him know what your bank account and PIN number is, so you could so he doesn't have to transfer it, so it would raise flags. You would just go into the ATM and put it in. So DM me the account number and the PIN, right? We'll get right on that. All right. It's a nice Thursday evening. Let me see what else we could jump into over there. What else are the stories? And hey, I think I'll jump in over this. Are you giving away money to who earlier, sir? I don't know about this earlier. There's an alleged Robin Hood here. Today is Friday or Thursday? Today is Friday or Thursday? No, today is Friday. What am I saying, boy? To me, boy. Ha ha. I want to cut. I have a person who could turn it. Hey. You see this talk you all going down on. All right. This very interesting story. A very interesting story I saw pop up here in the educational realm. Guardian, probe into teacher touching students' breasts. Breast, singular, nears completion. Yikes, what a story. Officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Child Protection Unit have almost completed investigations into reports that a penal school teacher touched a student on her breast during a Diwali function last month. The Form 2 student was interviewed by the CPU on Thursday. The mother said she was thankful that her daughter's story was reported exclusively by Guardian Media, noting that other students and parents had come out in support, offering words of comfort to the teenager. Given an account of what transpired, the mother said on October 11th, the girl was taking up names for modeling, and when she saw the teacher standing at a doorway as the girl was taking up names for modeling, when she saw the teacher standing at a doorway. As the student passed, he allegedly grabbed her right breast. Sheesh. The terrified student ran out of the classroom and told another teacher who took her to the principal's office. However, rather than investigate and report the matter to the relevant channels, the mother claimed the school officials did nothing. In the days leading up to the assault, the mother said she had noticed strange messages coming from the teacher to her daughter's phone. She said after the incident, she spoke to the teacher, who admitted to touching the student on her head, but not her breast. This teacher has traumatized my daughter. He should not be in school. She will live with this for the rest of her life, she added. Saying her daughter has a promising future ahead, the distraught mother showed off some of her trophies won in primary school for judo. All right. What you all think about that? Homeboy said he touched her head. Listen, that's a difficult thing. On Wednesday, Education Minister Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly told Guardian Media that the report is being investigated. The information before me differs from what you have presented. These are very serious and sensitive matters, and they are occupying the attention of the ministry at this time, she said. So, according to what Mrs. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly is saying, Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly is saying, the information she has is different from the information they have. I would assume the information she has may be that he touched her on her head or something to that effect. These things are just so delicate and so difficult. How are you going to decipher something like that? If the girl says he touched her, inappropriately, and he said he touched her on her head, who do you believe? My mom is a teacher at Chaguanas North. She was touched inappropriately by a female student like 2 weeks ago. On the other side, that's a well-known thing. Students do some really inappropriate things to teachers very regularly. They will sweep that under the carpet. This is not the first time this is happening. I know it's not the first time reports of such things are happening, but it's not just about sweeping it under the carpet, but it's about how do you deal with that? Do you just automatically take the girl's word? Now jail him one time and let him do some hard labor, can't be staying in jail and doing nothing. I understand this sentiment, Rahul, but next thing, the teacher is right. Next thing, it is indeed that the teacher touched her head, and who knows what played off, and she's upset with the teacher, and that's what she said, and the teacher is innocent. What then? And how do you investigate something like that? How do you deal with something like that? How is an investigation like that going to be done? Even if you investigate and you get witnesses, who would be a witness there? What if he was meaning to touch her head but missed? Meaning to touch her, that's another thing, Roni. What if he was trying to pat her head and it slipped and touched somewhere else? What about the messages Nisi says? Well, none of the messages that the mother actually said that he sent were inappropriate. Here's what she said he sent. He was saying hi. It was a weekend, so I felt texting her was inappropriate. He kept saying he had something to tell her. When she went to school on Monday, she ran away from him and he was asking her why she ran away, the mother recalled. If looked at in a certain lens, it could look inappropriate, but I guess there's another lens you could look at that in, and it would not be inappropriate. Saying hi isn't necessarily inappropriate. Telling the student you have something to tell them, if you indeed have something to tell them, isn't something inappropriate either. Akil Kam says, I had first-hand experience with similar situation that reached the Attorney General and nothing happened. I'm not surprised about that because it's a difficult thing to deal with too. Tyson says, I'm angry because the vid from the stabbing, you saw the aggressor put down the knife. Are there other similar incidents with same teacher? I don't know. I don't know about that. There aren't the allegations in this article here. So I don't know if there's a track record to look at. But many people look at these things. Many people look at these things and think it's okay. Well, the girl said he touched her, so well, yeah, just throw him in jail. I'm not saying it's a common thing, but there have been occurrences where these things have been fabricated. There have been such occurrences. More than you might even believe. And I assure you, if that was a male relative of yours on the end of that, you would want a proper investigation to do this whole thing. You would want to go through a proper investigation. And how would a proper investigation go there? Are you going to investigate all of these minor students who might have been in the class? Are you going to try to get some minor student to testify on a record against the teacher? Because those might be the only other witnesses. Would minor students be willing to testify against the teacher? Would that happen? And the disappointing part in that, I'm saying on the side of if the man is innocent, but on the side of if he is guilty. If he's guilty and it's so difficult to prove, you can imagine how frustrating that will be for the student. You know what this man did, and he might be smiling at you standing in the assembly the next time he sees you. He's there smiling and there's nothing you could do about it because there's no way you could prove it. That will be extremely frustrating on her side too. So it's just one of those really difficult conundrums. One of the strange and difficult things with school and the school environment too. It's unique. Speaking about school, before we leave, just so you know, this video, this live is brought to you by MindFULL Education, which is the educational service providing learning pods for students from the ages of preschool straight up to CXC. If you are interested in that, you can contact me wherever you can contact me, feel free. But our page in specific for MindFULL Education with 2 L's, MindFULL_education, can be found over there on Instagram. You can head over and follow us, and contact information is also there if you are interested. Limited spaces are available, so if you are interested, you should hustle on up on that. Just so you know, the classes are homeschool style teaching with groups of around 6 students, aiming at small groups, small classes, aiming for the homeschool style environment, homeschool style concepts. We're not teaching just random things, we're teaching actual concepts using strategies, using different teaching strategies and classical and traditional teaching strategies also, but with the homeschool environment to help students to be more comfortable in learning. And so far, it's been working pretty well. It's succeeding so far. So if you are interested in that, you can contact me, contact us. We also offer personal tutoring for more CXC and CAPE subjects, so you can contact us for that too. too. All these things we experiencing, crime, flooding, cost of living, are all caused by bad management. That is actually not true. Flooding isn't caused by bad management. Flooding is caused because there are floodplains and rivers naturally flood their banks at certain points in time in the year. Crime is caused not only by bad management, crime is caused by human nature. And there are different realities that facilitate increase in crime. Cost of living isn't only caused by bad management, at least not only bad management locally. We live in a global world. The cost of flour isn't something that can be controlled locally. We live in a global world. That's something that has international causes. So it's not all caused by bad management, and it's certainly not all caused by local bad management. Now, all could be exacerbated by bad management, or the bad situation could be made worse by bad management, but that's not to say they are caused by bad management. It's like cancer. Cancer, generally, if you look at causes, cancer isn't caused by anything. There are many things that could increase your risk of cancer, but it's not like it's caused per se by anything. Cancer is your own cells replicating, and as it will, replicating badly, mutating while they replicate. Not all flooding, maintenance of drainage. Yes, some flooding is due to maintenance of drainage. That's why I said the situation can be exacerbated by bad management, but it isn't caused by bad management. There is no one on this planet who can manage Trinidad good enough that there will be no flooding anywhere in the country. And maybe if you're talking about no flooding that affects people, and you want someone to manage the country that well, then you'd have to give them an amazing amount of power in order for them to do that. Because what they'd have to do, they'd have to go through Caroni and be able to take everyone who's living around the Caroni banks and the Caroni floodplain and move them to higher ground, and they'd have to go through every single floodplain or low-lying area and forcefully move people. And I don't think you would want a government that does that. So it's not something that necessarily could be solved by good management. I spoke about this previously. Geography is one of my subjects I teach at CAPE and CXC levels. I enjoy geography. I really like that subject. And the reality is, flooding is just a part of the natural water cycle. Also, when people discard their fridge and stove in the drain. Yes, there's a part of it that is the personal fault of the citizens too. But that's on them. I'm talking about the natural side of it. There's a part of flooding that just cannot be stopped. Too much rain falls, and you literally, as I keep saying every time it's brought up, the flat land that is next to a river, when you're labeling it, I don't know how many of you did CXC geography. If you're labeling a river, you have the main course of the river, you have the levees, the little bump at the side of the river, and then it goes to a little bit of flat land next to the river. That flat land is called a flood plain. The flood is an important word inside of that, what it's called there. Flood plain. The foreign trained experts are quite expensive. The public don't like that either. True. Bringing down the cost of food can reduce crime. Yes. I don't know if I agree with that, because you're making it seem like people are killing people to eat. I don't agree. The murderers out there aren't killing people to go buy a bread. That's not the case. That's not the case. I am not of the view that the people are killing people to buy a bread. Reducing the food cost isn't what is causing the crime. Passing the beverage container bill can reduce the plastics in the waterways and create an income. Again, these are things that give the government more power. I'm not sure I'm interested in that. I like to read that bill really carefully, because you would pass a beverage container bill to reduce the plastics and then wind up finding yourself in a situation where you are now in a monopoly where one friend of the government is creating all of the containers in the entire country, and you're like, oh no, look what the government is doing. They're giving their friend all the contracts to create all of that. Like, yeah, they are, but you gave them the power to do that. That's the point I keep saying. Anytime you're talking about solutions and what you want the government to do and what you think the government should do, always bear in mind, if it's just giving more power to the very same people you think are badly using the power right now. Not all, some crime. I don't know how much crime would be reduced by reducing the food cost. I'm not sure how we would reduce that food cost in a short time period either, too. It's very difficult to reduce that food cost in a short time period. A big problem with the Trinidad and Tobago food cost is the Trinidad and Tobago taste, what people like to eat. I would take people's complaints about the cost of food very seriously when they transition their entire diet to a local diet that they can buy from local farmers. And then you could complain about the price of getting food from the local farmers to yourself. If you're complaining about the price of foreign goods, then there's no one local you could complain about that too. You have a foreign taste, and that's what's going on. You are now at the whims and fancies of the foreign people. So it's only so much you could complain about food cost if you like buying foreign food. Of course, it would cost more when the people in the foreign countries are doing their own thing. There's no one you could go and protest to about that. The only way the government could reduce the price of foreign food is, Domino is better. Don't fight me on that. Domino is better. I despise the Oreo cream. That tastes like raw sugar. I don't know why that thing's so sweet. The only thing good on the Oreo is the biscuit itself, and you need some nice ice cream to put that in. Otherwise, even the biscuit is too sweet. Domino's. Domino is the key. But yes, it's the foreign taste. They put a tax on each bottle at manufacturing stage in order to pay the collector. So, in other words, you're going to increase the food price. You do understand that's what you're going to do, Akil Camps. If you put a tax on each bottle at each manufacturing stage, what the manufacturers are going to do is not lose money. They're going to increase the price of the goods. And then we'll have a further increase on food prices. And we'll be like, why are the food prices increasing? Well, we asked them to do something and increase the food prices. But you know, some foreign stuff is cheaper than local. Yes, some foreign stuff. But if you want really cheap, you go local. If you want really cheap, Eddos. Go eat some Eddos. Go grow some Eddos. Like, those are things where we could control the prices more readily. A lot of the food prices, the complaint about food prices has a lot to do with our taste. Has to do with our taste. Now, something I agree where the government has a part to play is, I think, in regional Caribbean trade. That's an avenue, I think, where we may be able to get a lot of solutions. Regional Caribbean trade. Trinidad and Tobago does not have the land resources required to be able to do all of the agriculture on a large scale that may be necessary. But Guyana does. And if we are able to open up trade between these territories, maybe we'd be able to get some cheaper food from right there. That's something that the government would have to play a part in. Empress Roni says, if I have to do that, I can only eat lettuce because provision is a no-no. Roni, how you live in Tobago and do like provision? Yeah, shame, girl. Roni ain't shame. Big, strong Tobagonian. Akil Camps, I'm not asking this one. I did an interview once with the TTME, the manufacturers, and I was asking them about it. And they were pointing out we do not have enough land to grow many of the raw materials at the scale necessary to do manufacturing with it. There are some materials, there are some things we would be able to grow. But if you're talking about as raw material for manufacturing and export, we just don't have we don't have that amount of land resources in Trinidad and Tobago. We do have some land, but if you think about, if you're looking at international farms, to farm at the scale required to sell at the prices that many of them sell at, to be internationally competitive, we just don't have that much land. It's just the reality. To feed ourselves, well, maybe to feed ourselves, but that's a matter of decision. That's a matter of decisions. Like, we cannot grow everything here. We don't grow wheat. If we're talking about feeding ourselves, one of the first things you need to do is if you want to reduce the import bill, get people to change their tastes. That's not just on the government. And that's what I'm sitting here talking about night after night. So many things, people in Trinidad, and I think, and I've said this over and over and over, I think this is part of the reason we end up in so much political problems. Because we look to our politicians to solve everything, assuming that they can, while the reality is they cannot. No politician is going to get into governance and make some legislation that solves all the crime in the country. That is never going to happen. No politician can get into governance and write a law that is going to make the international food prices be at the most affordable price for you. That's not going to happen. If you want to reduce the food import bill, change your taste. Are you eating flour every day? Do you eat flour every day? We don't grow wheat in Trinidad and Tobago. So if you eat flour every day, you are a big part of the problem why the food import bill is as it is. When you eat rice, do you eat locally grown rice? Do you eat the Mayara rice? Another question. Akil comes, but give people a choice of cheap food or expensive imports. Now, you're talking about the government trying to force, and this is the problem I've been saying over and over during the live. For the government to create the cheap food and expensive import problem. The cheap food and expensive imports. What the government would have to do for that to happen, well, they would have to facilitate the local grade. That they should do that anyway. Moruga, yes, Denicia, you are right. Moruga I meant, not Mayara, Moruga, you are right. In order for them to have that expensive foreign goods, they would have to tax it heavy. Is that something you want? Like, people talk about this. But do you want Dr. Rowley using taxes to force you to eat what he thinks you should eat? No, you don't want that. I'll answer it for you. No, you don't want that. So, no, you don't want the government changing the prices. Why do you need that kind of big stick method? Someone needs to force the price to change. You change your taste. You know that the food import bill is a problem. Well, you make up your mind to not eat imported food. You don't need the government to write legislation for you to decide not to eat imported food. It seems like nearly everything in our mindset, and I think that comes from the colonial times, because we were a colony where everything happening in this colony had to come from the heads up in England, and they made all our decisions first. Big Daddy in England made all the decisions first. And it's like we still have that mentality where we're always looking for some politician to make that decision for us. Tyson says, I'm a celiac. We have no flour products at my household. Homemade cassava flour all the way. Word up on that, Tyson. That's not what I'm saying. Akil Camp says, local people don't plant the lands again, and not everything we can make here with the type of soil. We had a decent dairy industry at one point in time that was demolished by cheap powdered milk. Like, for me, I am attempting to live the things I talk about. I have my garden growing. I eat probably the majority of my diet sometimes comes from my own homegrown garden. I can tell you, when it comes to the juice front, I have some limes, I have some passion fruit, I get an occasional Portugal. Juice is covered. Simple like that. I have cassava and eddos, the starch side covered. There are things you could do. And if you aren't doing those things and you're just hoping that a politician is going to come and somehow show us the way and lead us to victory, I don't have that kind of hope in humans. I'm sorry, I just don't have it. I don't believe they're going to do that. I think that's false hope. We need to do like Canada and start bringing foreigners to cultivate the lands. Well, we have a large contingent of foreigners currently. There are already some farmers who utilize Venezuelan labor, just by the way. There are already some farmers who do that. All right. Look at the time. I think it's about time for me to dive out. Any further questions or comments before I dive out? Any further questions or comments? We take our farmland and build malls. Now, Akil camps, I agree with you there. Here's something that I remember. When I learned it, I was like, wait, what? I remember in UE, sitting in a soil science class, learning about dirt, soil science. I'm there and the lecturer is talking about the different types of soil in Trinidad and the low Pinot profile and low Pinot red and etc., and talking about the fertility of the soil and where in Trinidad has the most fertile soil. The most fertile soil in Trinidad is the east-west corridor where we have built all the malls and homes. Because the minerals from the mountain collect at the base of the mountain right there. That bit of land in what may be considered a rain shadow. We could go through a geography lesson here any day. Lovely stuff. But that bit of land right at the foot of the mountains, the northern range, that first little piece right there, that's the most fertile land in Trinidad. And that's where we have the vast majority of all our population living right there. The most fertile land. The only bit of agriculture we really have there is the little piece that UE has on the side of the highway there. I forget what they call that place. My mom was a geography teacher. Good stuff. Love geography. That little bit of UE experimental business there. And I believe that UE was supposed to have for agriculture a whole big chunk of that east-west corridor. I can't remember the details. That was quite a few years ago. They were supposed to have a whole chunk of that for agriculture right there, because bear in mind the University of the West Indies initially started off as an agricultural university. Wait now, so it's only geo teachers, children of geo teachers in the house. Well done, well done. So, the University of the West Indies was initially, Ronnie, you're getting out of timing with that. Ronnie, don't make we fall out. Don't make we fall out. We will fall out. Anyway, before I was rudely interrupted, UE was supposed to have a big chunk of that land for agriculture. The government took it back, I believe, to build the piece of the airport. They took it back and gave piece to the mall. They kept taking pieces, and now our most fertile land is the most built up land in the country. Yeah. How is that for planning? How is that for planning? Take the fertile land and build houses on it. Makes sense. All right, folks, that's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you all in the next Mindful Live, which is going to be next week, Monday. Yeah, we don't do these lives on a weekend. The weekend is time for family. In a generation past. Yeah, in a generation past, but it seems like bad management is a commonality in Trinidad and Tobago. I will see you all. I'll see you guys. I want a t-shirt. Message me. They're not free, but they are for sale. They are always for sale. Thank you very much, Akil Camps. I really appreciate you in the live, and I really appreciate the questions and the comments and pushing back and all of that. It makes the live so much better. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. It is a pleasure. It had to reverse, but yeah, good night. Good night, folks. Enjoy the weekend. Peace.